welcome everybody. Thanks for showing up for this quiz. We're going to start here in just a couple minutes. Go ahead and sign in. Ah, Blendinator, I love it. Let's get ready to subnet. Love it, love it, love it. All right, I'm using L, first one in. Congratulations. If you are watching this and you want to join the game, you can use the Kahoot app. You can use in your smart device, you can use the website, kahoot.it. Game pin is up there. Love to have you join us. All right, Middle East Media is in the house from Iraq. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you here. And in answer to your question, I'm doing good. In my time zone, it is very close to 11 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday. I realize that across the world, we're coming in from lots of different time zones. And no matter what time zone you're coming in from, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. And Blendinator, thank you for the sticker. Wishing everybody good luck, as is appropriate. Love it. If you need to join the game, if you're brand new to this, the way you can do it is you can, let's see if I have there we go. So you can go to kahoot.it and then use the game pin code, or you can go ahead and use the app on a smart device. Either way is great. And then we get this little camera test. There I am. Running a little late today. My hair's still wet from the shower. It's great to have you. We've got a few people online and a few people signed in, and it's good to have you here. If you are studying for your CCNA, your Cisco CCNA, or if you've got your CCNA and you want to refresh your skills, we're happy to have you. My channel these days on YouTube is like 99% focused on just that. We got 150 plus videos in the CCNA playlist. There's 40 plus videos in the quiz playlist, which is what this is part of or will be. So it's good to have you here. And we'll start. You know what? It's time to start. Let's do it. All right. And I'm going to record this locally also, just in the event I want to edit this later, I can. Okay, and here we go. For those of you who are, again, new, my name is Keith Barker. Welcome to this quiz on IPv4 and related topics, including some subnetting. And here is the very first question. These are in randomized orders. Question number 1, starting with a /22 mask, what new mask would be used to create 5 brand new subnets with the most possible hosts on each of those subnets? And if you're just joining, the pin code is in the bottom right if you need it. All right, and Fred is in the house from Côte d'Ivoire. Welcome, welcome. Montreal's here, Michigan's here, Philippines here, Ireland's here. And Fernando, we just started just now. So go ahead and sign in if you want to play, and we'd love to have you. So Iqbal, to answer these questions, go ahead and use the Kahoot app or the Kahoot IT website. And welcome, welcome. All right. With a /22, what new mask would be used to create 5 new subnets with the most possible hosts? So as I think about this type of question, many years ago, they had in the CCNA, they had 2 exams for CCNA. You could take one or both, 2-part or 1-part. Anyway, there's a lot of, in the past, old exam, there's a lot of, questions like how many bits and blah, blah, blah. Today, Cisco is really going to ask you about applying your knowledge. So this is like a little warm-up quiz. It's important to be able to do this, but please expect to be able to demonstrate your knowledge of subnetting and so forth in the live exam. So let me grab a pen out real quick. And let me bring this, see here. I've got a pen somewhere, and I know how to use it. Here it is. That'll work. Okay, so if we had a /22, And let me get the right tool out here. My bad. One moment. There it is. Okay. All right, so if we had a /22, and that was our starting point for a mask, which basically means the first 22 bits of the IP address are the network, and the last 10 bits would be used for host addressing. If we needed to create 5 new subnets, the question is, how many more bits above and beyond the 22 do we need to create 5 new subnets? And so the answer to that is the finger game. And it goes like this. The best way to show you this is to show you this. If you've been in my Subnet Saturdays, that series here on YouTube, you've already seen this. Okay, so if we needed 5 new subnets, the question is how many bits? It's a quantity question. How many new bits above and beyond what we're given do we need for subnetting? And the finger game, and check out my videos for the full plan of this, you start with your thumb in the air with the 2 on your thumb, you just keep doubling the numbers. And your fingers represent bits. So you put your thumb up, there's a 2. That's not enough. We need 5 new subnets. You put another digit up, you double it, that's 4. That's not enough subnets. You put another finger up in the air, you double it again, that's 8. Hey, that's enough. So what we need to do is we need 3 additional bits above and beyond the /22 to support at least 5 new subnets. So 22 plus 3 more would be like 25. And then if, beyond that, you'd want to know how to represent that in dotted decimal and so forth as a mask. But that's the end of this question. That's all we really had to do here, was simply identify what the new mask would be to support that. Now, all of this information about how to do this and so forth is all in my playlist, free of charge, here on YouTube. It's called Subnet Saturdays. And I made a special shortcut URL for it as well. So I encourage you to take a look at that. And one other thing, too, is subnetting skills, IP skills, you're going to use them the rest of your IT career. They're going to be used. Even if you're like software development stuff, you still need to understand the IP addressing and so forth. So if you're working in cloud services, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft's Azure, or you're on-prem with a VMware solution like vSphere, or you're doing virtualized networking, guess what? All these skills are important. They all matter, and you're going to use them. In fact, just the other day, when I was in grade school, elementary school, I learned, addition, subtraction, the basic, maths, depending on where you're from and how you want to pronounce it. But I learned the basics of math. And I thought, this is pretty good. I can, balance a checkbook. That used to be a thing. A checkbook used to be a thing. Anyway, using basic math skills is important for the world of subnetting as well. Now, you don't have to be a master at powers of 2 or anything like that. So, but you do need to have some basic math skills to pull this off. So I encourage everybody to watch Subnet Saturday and get those skills. So to the 25 people who nailed this, way to go. Okay, let's keep on moving. Here's question 2 of 12. What happens first? The very first thing when the PC at the top, which is PC1, when it pings www.google.com. All right. Nice. What happens first when PC1 pings google.com? Let's take a peek. So a lot of people got this correct. Way to go. So if we pinged, so first of all, this ARP-A, what that's doing, it's removing any cached information regarding the layer 3 to layer 2 mapping table, the ARP, Address Resolution Protocol cache. So it's empty. ARP-A displays it, and it's empty. There's no ARP entries found. So the very first thing that would happen if we were pinging google.com, we would be making a DNS request. That's true. But to resolve google.com into an IP address. But to get the DNS request functioning, I suppose it depends on where our DNS server is. If it's local on the subnet, we would just make a DNS local request. But it's very likely the DNS server is not on the local subnet because this guy is on the network 10.0.1.0 based on this mask. And so as a result, he would be doing a an ARP request for his default gateway. And I'm just hoping that's one of the answers here. Let's take a look. Yeah, he's going to ARP for his default gateway to get out. Fantastic work. Okay, moving forward. Question 3 of 12. Multiple select. And it's double points, no pressure. What other addresses are on the same exact IP network as the computer that has the IP address of 10.0.35.90 with a 23-bit mask? Please choose exactly two answers. Good luck. And for everybody who might be joining late, if you want to join the party, please do. Log into kahoot.it with that game pin, bottom right-hand corner, or use the app, either way, with that game pin, and you can respond with the answers, your answers, in the game interface. Again, welcome everybody. Glad you're here. All right. Wow, that's great. Good job. A lot of people have been studying and understand the basics of IP. I'm really super impressed. Here's how I would probably sort that one out if I was presented this question. And this is the methodology I teach in Subnet Saturday here on my YouTube channel. What other address on the same network as the computer using 10.0.35.90? So I'd first ask myself, okay, based on that mask, what octet are we in? So the 23 is the right here in the third octet. I'm just going to make a note of that, third octet. Octet is a fancy way of saying the byte, 8 bits of data. And the mask, if it's a 23, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, boom, like that. And then this would be a 0. That's the first 7 bits, meaning the network. So the new mask, the boundary would be here. Over here on the left would be network. Over here on the right would be host. And now here's the trick. You take this last bit of the mask that's on, and that becomes the block size. And that means all of the networks in this third octet, which is important to remember where we're at. In the third octet, the subnets are going to be 0, and then you keep adding the block size. Then 2, then 4, then 6, then add 2 more, 8. And so over here, we're looking at addresses that in this third octet that are they're kind of up there. So what we could do is just say, well, it's going to be an even number. And this is a little bit of shortcutting, but you could just write these numbers all the way out. But there's going to be network 32 in that third octet. There's going to be network 34. There's going to be network 36, all based on that block size. And so from here, we could say, well, 32 is going to be 32.0 and 34.0 and 36.0 because we're in the third octet. So the range would be, for this one, be 33.254. And I'm going to put 255. That does include the broadcast. So if you've been through Subnet Saturdays, you know that where the broadcast is. But that would be the broadcast address. And then the next subnet would be 34.0 through 35.255, which also includes the broadcast. And then 36 would be 38. So we just, for the range, just do 37.255, and we just continue on. But the question is, so this computer, let's change the color. This computer right here, 35.90, is on this subnet. That's the subnet, 10.0.34.0, the 23-bit mask. And there's the range. So once you know the range, you say, well, what IP addresses fit in that range? 34.1 does. right there, if it's in that range, and 35.254. That's the actual last valid host on that subnet. And those are the two correct answers. So that's an approach perspective on how I would tackle this question. But it's all based on the knowledge from Subnet Saturday. So get that knowledge, own it, and then going forward, if anybody ever throws you a situation, real world or hypothetical, where you need to calculate, oh my gosh, what is the valid IP address here? We could pull it off. I remember the first time ever when I had to use some serious IPv4 subnetting skills to figure out a problem in production. I was in LA. I was in like the 34th floor of a high-rise there, and I was by myself. I was let in, and I had to figure out, based on the information around me, estimate what the default gateway is without looking at any other devices. So they said it's the first IP address on the subnet. And I thought, oh. And so basically, I had to calculate and verify what the masks were. And it was great. I thought, yeah, this is useful information. So congratulations for everybody who's been studying and working with IPv4. If you aren't, my call to action is this. If you aren't quite yet prepared for IPv4 and subnetting related questions, just make a note. That's part of your study plan. Enjoy it. Have a good time. Take the time, learn it. And once you own it and you have a method for solving it, then you can use that method whenever you need to go ahead and solve any problems regarding IPv4, whether it's a certification exam or real world. Either way is great. Okay, here's question number 4 of 12. What is the URL for my Learn to Subnet playlist, which I affectionately call Subnet Saturday? It's one of the 4. I created a shortcut for it. But the easiest way to find this, by the way, is just go to my channel, go to my playlist, and it's there. But there's a URL. This is worth points in the game if you know what it is. And my voice is a little bit hoarse. I had a kind of a late night last night. It was a lot of fun. Nice. It's the one that ends in subnet. If you ever need to find it, please join my channel and subscribe and be able to find it a little easier. Okay, which IP address, singular, could be assigned to a new interface on this router? So this router named MLS, which is very likely a multi-layer switch. What IP address could be assigned to a new SVI, a new switched virtual interface, or a new loopback interface, either way? So in order to use the pin for the game, in the bottom right-hand corner, you can open up a new web page to kahoot.it, and that's where you use the pin. Or if you want to install the Kahoot app on a smart device like a smartphone or pad, a tablet, either way, and that's where you put in the pin. And I also want to remind everybody to just avoid chatting in the answers in the chat. Use the game interface. It'll be much more rewarding. And good news, you won't be put in timeout. All good. All right, which IP addresses could be assigned to a new interface on the router? Now, the reason I love this question that I created was because it makes us demonstrate an understanding of several things, which the certification exam from Cisco, I think is super fair. I think it's super fair because it's really going to ask you about, do you know how this works? And if you've been studying it and labbing it up and you understand how something works, you're not going to need a memorized answer because it's not going to be too useful because they have a huge database of questions, but you'll be able to answer the question because you know how it works. So let's just take a moment and talk about this one. This is a multi-layer switch. A couple tells regarding that would be this thing right here. So that's a switched virtual, let me change my colors. That's a switched virtual interface. It's a logical layer 3 interface that can run on a multi-layer switch. So we're looking at the routing table, and this is the network, 10.67.80.0. And here's the thing that's important to know about assigning a new IP address. A Cisco router or a multi-layer switch, a device that does routing from Cisco, unless you're using something clever or creative, such as VRFs, which are not part of CCNA, but just the general global routing table, you can't have two logical layer 3 interfaces in the same subnet. So if we tried to make a new interface loopback 10, and we gave it the IP address of 10.67.80.3, for example, which is in that same subnet, it would say, sorry, if this overlaps. This loopback 10 overlaps with interface VLAN 30. Or if we had another interface, switch virtual interface, same thing. If we had an interface VLAN 20 and we tried to put this address on it, it would say this overlaps. So you can't. So the question is really, in this one, this is the question of what is the range for this network address space, which is again a subnetting question, and which of the IP addresses presented are not in that range. So here's how this is just the overview approach portion of how I would solve this. So if you've gone through Subnet Saturdays, there's a lot of great methods for approaching this. And the first thing I would do, in fact, let me just grab this real quick, bring this over. I would do something like this. And they do give you, whether you're taking this digitally or you're taking it, at a facility, you'll have either a digital whiteboard to work with, or you'll have, like if you go to a facility, they'll give you a piece of paper that's laminated. But anyway, I have a video on the tool, the graphic tool that they give you during the live exam if you are taking it from home or from your office. So I'd ask myself the question, okay, for this mask of /27, which octet? This gets me more times than it doesn't. Yesterday in office hour, I was working through one of these, and I was in the wrong octet just because I wasn't paying attention. So first of all, say what octet am I in as far as an approach? /27, that puts me in the 4th octet, so I'd make a note there. I'm in the 4th octet, okay. And then for this mask, I'd be 25, 26, 27. That's the new dividing line. All these would be zeros. And then we know what the block size is, which is 32. So I would say that the networks here are going to be, in this last octet, 0, and then add the block size, 32, 64, add 32, 96, etc. So for this device, and the 4th octet, yeah. So in the 4th octet, that would do this. So for this, this route right here is in, I'll call it subnet A, which has the range of 0 through 31, that being the broadcast address. And then network B is 32 through 63, which also includes the broadcast address. And then going on. So if we were asking ourselves, what new address could we put on? We could put on any IP address that isn't in this range right here of 0 through 31 for the 4th octet. So anything at 0 through 31 is a no-go because it's going to complain. So let me clear that off, and let me go back to this and look at the media once more. Okay, and then the answer is down here. So the one that's correct is, I'll only bring back my notes real quick. 1 through 31. Okay, so thank you for that pause there. So this one right here at the bottom is not inside that subnet. So it's 10.67.80.33. That's too high. And then all the others, like .9 is in that first subnet, .17 is, and then yellow says you can do it anywhere. And that's why this answer is what it is, because you can't have two interfaces in the same subnet. So this is this sneaky? Is it a little bit sneaky? The answer is, on my part, yes, it's a little bit sneaky, because what I'm trying to do is drive home the idea about how it works. And then if you understand how it works, we're set. Whether, however we're presented with a question or a real world scenario, if we understand how it works and we can calculate the subnets, we can, poof. Also, I had it in office hour yesterday. Somebody asked me, what about the length of this exam? Like there's like 100-ish questions and, we really can't take 5 minutes on every question. That's true. There's not enough time to take 5 minutes on every question. However, there could be some questions which deserve a little bit more time. So if you need 3 or 4 minutes to resolve a question like this and do some math, do it. And other questions which are just asking you, like, what is this? Or what is that? Or how does that work? Boom, boom, boom. So other questions, like the general questions, maybe, a minute-ish per question. But for questions that you have to actually think about and calculate and verify, take a few more minutes. Also, when I do a question like this, I'll do it, and then I'll just take a breath, and then I'll just verify it, right? Just saying, is that true? Does that make sense? And then I'll move on. Because if we're in the wrong octet or something doesn't line up, we just want to take an extra moment and get it done. Okay, there we go. That's that one. And I encourage everybody to check out Subnet Saturday. It is free. Amusing, Al. First place. Way to go. All right, here's question 6 of 12. So glad you're here today. Thank you for showing up. This is double points. Which IP address would be matched by the route 10.0.3.192 with a 28-bit mask? That is highlighted in the output, not a trick question. It's a static route with an administrative distance of 1. Which IP address, if it was sent as a destination address, would be matched by that route? What this really is, this is the question of, can you calculate the range of an IPv4 subnet? That's what this really is. So Pasidu, if you need to find the application, if you have Google Play or the iOS App Store, one of those two options, just search for Kahoot, K-A-H-O-O-T, and they have a free platform, a free app on both platforms. Or if you just are on a computer, just open up a new browser to kahoot.it and put in the pin code, and either way you're set. Also, if you're late to this game and want to play for more games, there's a playlist that has all these recordings, various recordings, over 40 of them on different topics for CCNA. Please enjoy that. And you can find me here every Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time for a new updated version of one of these quizzes. So join me. All right, that's a lot of great answers. Wow, which IP addresses would be matched by the route 10.0.3.192? And here's just a quick overview of the approach that I would take if I had this question, because there's so many things we could ask and answer about this, subnet. But we know that, in fact, let me just bring over this real quick. So you could actually make on your little, that's a calculator. You could make on your, whether you're doing live exam or whether you're taking this at home or from your office, the tool they give you, and I have a short video on how to use that tool, lets you go ahead and put text in, and you can draw with your mouse, which isn't too convenient. But having just this, just sitting there, can help us with that. So in answer to these questions, and a lot of these could be done just in your mind also after you practice with this, this is in the 4th octet based on that mask. So I'll say 4th, so I don't forget where I'm at. So the first 3 octets are locked in stone. 10.0.3, that's definitely all network, and we're just trying to take a look at this 4th octet here. And 28 bits would be 25, 26, 27, 28. There's our dividing line, network to the left, host bits to the right. These are all zeros, although that doesn't matter because we're not going to look at those too much anymore. And there's our block size of 16. So if we have a block size of 16, that means our subnets in this 4th octet are going to be 0. Then you add the block size, 16 plus 16 more, 32 plus 16 more, 48. But look what I did. It's like, oh no, we're going way up there. So you could just say, well, let's just skip to 10, right? 10 times 16 is 160, and then keep adding 16 to the mix. So if we did that, we'd have 16 plus more is 176, and then 16 more would be 192. And just do the long math if you need to, just adding them up, and then we have 16 more would be 208, and then 224, and I think that's high enough. So the question, for this route 10.0.3.192. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Oh my gosh. So I just fell into my own trap. I'm doing all this math. It's like, you know what, Keith? It's showing us right here the route, right? That is the route. I don't need to find out. So if that's the network and the block size is 16, that means the 192 network is basically the range is 192 through 207, which would be the broadcast. And then that's the next subnet range. So I really don't need to, I just did extra work. So in an exam, I'm not getting that time back, but it was only a couple minutes anyway. So in this question, it's like, whoa, block size is 16. Here is the actual network, 192. That means the next subnet is 208. The range would be for this 192 would be 192 through 207. And then 208 would be the next subnet. So I'm looking for 192 through 207 as far as answers. And that one matches 190, yep, that, and the 210 doesn't match. All right, so that's how I would approach it. Most of you nailed it. Congratulations. Sorry, it took me a double CCI a few additional moments for my own trick. But here's the deal. My whole intent for us in these videos is not to trick anybody, but is to help you identify where is a weak area, where am I strong, where am I good, or do I need to study a little bit more? And sometimes if you just need to study a little bit more, it's worth doing. And so I'd encourage you to use whatever study material that you're using, use it. Check out my quiz playlist. They are fantastic for helping you identify the areas that you're solid in and the areas that you need help in. So if you look at any one of my quizzes on whether it's network automation, layer 2 switching, trunking, routing, OSPF, whatever it is, if you look at those quizzes in the recorded playlist and you think, okay, I'm going to pause this. Do I know the answer to this? And do I know why? Can I figure it out? If you are comfortable with how to figure them out, great. You're probably really solid in that area. If it's like, I don't have a clue, or I don't know why Keith got that answer, then you just need more study, which is totally cool. More study is perfectly fine. So hang in there, don't give up, and it's worth it. Okay, what is the best way to configure IPv4 addresses for hosts to make sure that they have addresses in the correct subnet? Like, that way you don't have to worry about manually assigning an address in the correct subnet if you use another technology to do it. There's only 60 seconds on the clock. And Ashish is asking, I know what the block size is, but how do we know where it starts? And the block size, for the octet you're in, it's always 0 to start with. And then you simply add the block size. So for that, whatever octet you're in, just start with 0, then add the block size, add the block size, add the block size, and that will show you all the possible subnets. So I'm getting some requests to help Joshua. So Joshua, Kahoot.it in a new browser window, or the app Kahoot on Android or iOS store. We'll get you in there. All right. Fantastic. DHCP. Perfect score. I mean, you guys most of you crushed it. Way to go. Question 8 of 12. How many hosts can be supported by a /28? Ooh. This is the finger game regarding host bits. I just put a video up, our image up of a couple in the US. These are a couple legacy and fairly current TV show hosts to remind us that we're focusing on the host bits on the far right of a IP address. All right, way to go. A lot of people nailed it. So if we have a 28-bit mask, that means there's 29, 30, 31. There's 4 bits left for host bits. And here's how I would calculate how many hosts. I mean, if you saw me taking an exam, I would probably literally do this. I would just bring up my hand and say, okay, I've got 4 bits. 2, 4, 8, 16. That's the possible number of combinations with 4 bits. But for host addressing, you can't use the network address itself. That's where all the host bits are 0. And you can't use the broadcast address. That's where the host bits portion is all 1s. So basically you take 2, 4, 8, 16, the possible number of combinations with 4 bits, and you say, I'm going to subtract those two, the network and the broadcast, and that leaves us with 14, which is the correct answer here. All right, here we go, moving forward. Also, at the very end of this session, I will take a few questions live, and then if you want to go hang out on Discord, we can do that too. All right, Amusing Owl has the streak with 8 correct answers in a row. No wonder you're at the top of the pack here. 15,314 points. Congratulations, Amusing Owl. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Here's question 9 of 12. We're on the home stretch. This is double points. Which of the following are addresses in network 10.0.3.0 with a 25-bit mask, which is shown in dotted decimal representation? All right, which of the following addresses are in that 10.03 network with a 25-bit mask? Here's the approach, and again, Subnet Saturdays would be a great place to help build all the skills up to that point. I'd first ask myself, what octet are we in? With a .128 for the last octet, we're in the 4th octet. 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. And if you have that already written out on your screen or notepad, etc., you already have that available. It's great. So I would say this is the network 10.030. We have a .128, which means that we are using that in that 4th octet, and these are all zeros. And the reason that matters is because we have a new dividing line there. So everything over here is net, like a basketball player, nothing but net. And over here on the right, we have host bits, and this is the 4th octet. So if this is the block size, here's our subnets. It's going to be x.x.x. something. So the first 3 octets don't change. And for the 4th octet, we always start with 0, and we add the block size. And so the next subnet would be 128. Then we add it again, it'd be 256, and we're basically having to carry a binary one over. So the range here for this subnet, which is with the 0 in this octet, is 0 through .127, which is the broadcast address. And then this one would go 128 through 255, which is the broadcast address for that one. So the question is, for this network, the 10.03 network, which is this guy right here, which IP addresses are in that range? Well, anything that's from 0 through 127. Winner, loser. All right, so that's my approach of how I would go after that one. All right, subnetting is fun once you figure it out, and for many people, it looks like you are based on this answer, so congratulations on your hard work. All right, we have just 3 more questions. Here's question 10. After PC1 pings PC2, what is true about the ARP cache on PC1? Hey, Joshua, thank you for helping out. Sorry about that. I have a little bot that helps me with those, and didn't mean to block that for you. Thanks for the support. You're awesome. All right. So we have 45 on red. Let's talk about why this is really a subnetting question as well. Let me bring up the graphic real quick, and let me get a pen color that will be complementary. How about yellow will work? Okay, so the question is, are these 2 computers, PC1 and PC2, are they on the same subnet? Are they in the same VLAN? Which normally, a subnet and VLAN, there's a 1-to-1 correlation. It doesn't have to be, but that's normally the case. So let's figure out what subnet this guy's on. So at the mask, in fact, I'm going to bring over as a reinforcement tool this, which we've used before. We're going to use it again. I'll put it right here. And we won't need all the right-hand side anyway. Let me bring back a pen. So we are dealing with a 192 in the last octet, so we're dealing with a 4th octet. And, let me go. So I'm dealing with the 4th octet, and let me just get my mask real quick. So the 192 would be here, and then there's the dividing line, and then everything here is host bits. And everything this way is network bits, just as before. And the block size is 64. And that means for the 4th octet that the first 3 octets are in stone. We know what they are. They never change because we're just tweaking the 4th octet here. And for the last octet, the subnets always start with 0, or in the octet we're in. So the first one would be 0, and then we'd have add the block size 64, and then add the block size again would be 32 more, would be 96. And then the ranges would be 0 through 63. That's the broadcast. I'll just put a B there for broadcast. And here's the net. I'll put an N for network. And the valid host addresses would be everything between that. And then this guy would go up to the next subnet, which would be 95, and then 96 plus 32 more, and we could continue that. So the question is, what subnets are these guys on? And the PC1 here, it is on subnet. I'm going to call this subnet. Let me change my colors. Let's say it's subnet A and subnet B. So PC1, based on this range, is in subnet A. And PC2 down here, based on its IP address, is in subnet B. They are in different subnets. And as a result, when they need to reach each other, and because the layer 2 ARP cache is empty on computer 1, this one on the top here, it would ARP for its default gateway at layer 2, so it could forward the frame to layer 2 to its default gateway. Then the router would look at the layer 3 destination address and make its routing decision, and hopefully it had a path either directly to or indirectly or to PC2. So that is also a subnetting question that also is asking about, do you understand how the IPv4 protocol works? Okay, and somebody was asking, is the next subnet 128? I think I just walked, oh, did I mess that up? Let's see here. Let's go back for a second. I have some comments coming up in the queue and I'm gonna check my work. So let me undo that, and let me bring this over here. 4th octet, 192. Yeah, like that. Get that lined up. So with 192, that is the first 2 bits on. So the block size would be 64. So it has network 0, network 64. Yeah, the math is right there. I think we're good to go. Okay, thanks for the double check. And if you have other questions on that, please feel free to come and hit me up in in Discord right after. Or if you want to, on Discord, there's a lot of people willing to help. I think we have like 8,000 or 9,000 people there now who have subscribed. It's also free. Take advantage of those resources. And I also have office hour every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Feel free to join me as well. Okay, here we go. We are nearing the end. We have 2 more questions. Amusing Al with 19,891 points on top. Way to go. Followed by Captain Panda, Epic Duck, Brave Mouse, and Silly Goat. People are not thinking he's so silly anymore because he's got 16,991. So way to go, Silly Goat. Okay, question 11 of 12. You want to subnet and support 30 hosts per subnet. What is the optimal mask? I want you to identify the maximum mask that you could use and still support 30 hosts per subnet. Oh, look, they've got their thumbs up. Huge clue. This is a finger game question. Well done. Well done. Well done. Well done. So if we need to support 30 hosts, we do the finger game to calculate how many bits that would require for host bits, and then subtract that number of host bits from 32. And whatever's left can be the optimal mask. And most of you got it right. Way to go. Okay, here is the last question. Now, no pressure, but the faster you answer correctly, the more points you get. And also, just showing up means you're a winner, because showing up and putting in the time and enjoying it and getting better every week over week is an important skill. So here's the last question, with my appreciation for you being here. And right after, if you want to stick around for a few minutes, I'll take some questions as well. All right, here's the last one, multiple select and double points. Here it is. Which IP addresses would be appropriate for hosts in VLAN 10? Okay. We've got a lot of answers on the correct spots. Let's just talk about an approach really quick that I would use based on this question to get to that right result. Because I think it's more about the process that's important than actually memorizing an answer, because answers change based on lots of questions. So if we wanted to know which IP addresses would be appropriate for hosting VLAN 10, what they're really asking us is, what is the range? So interface VLAN 10 is an SVI, a switched virtual interface, a logical layer 3 interface, used on a multi-layer switch. And this is tricky because this is the IP address that's being configured on that device, but it doesn't really tell you literally like what is the network address. This is the IP address, but there's some bit splitting in that 4th octet. So we would use this technique. You've probably never seen this before, but it goes like this: 128, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, and 1. And if you think, would a double CCIE write that out when he's taking an exam? The answer is yes, I would. I don't want to get a question wrong because I looked at it, made an estimated guess, and then wasn't paying attention to the details. So I would write this out. I would ask myself, what octet are we in? We're in the 4th octet. The first 3 octets are in stone, so we just lock those down. It's always going to be 10.0.0, and I don't care about what those addresses are because they're not going to change. It's going to be 10.0.0. But the 4th octet is going to change. So the mask is a 192, and a 192 in dotted decimal represents this bit on and this bit on. That's it. And so 64 plus 128, I had to double check myself there. So there's our new dividing line. Everything to the left is network bits. Everything to the right is host bits, like that. And because this is our last digit, our last bit that's on in the mask, we are going to use that for the block size. So the networks are going to be 0, 64, and then add 64 more, 128, and then add 64 more, which would be like 7, 8, 9, 192. All right, so there's our subnetworks. We'll call these network A and B and C and D. And I'm going too far because we don't even need that, because this is basically this interface is on network A. That's because the last. I'm so sorry. As I look at my work here, what is that number? 100. Let's just write out the ranges to make sure I'm not going to shortcut anybody here. So the last octet, the range would be 0 through 63. That's this is the broadcast. This is the network. Everything in between is valid host addresses. 64 would go through 127, 128. So that's why I don't want to shortcut. 191, and that looks great. So as far as .100, that's in this. Oh, it was in network A. Okay, so that's in network A. I'm glad. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, none of sleep last night. 100 definitely falls in this range of class of network B, so that's right there. Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is network B, and what IP addresses would be appropriate for hosting the VLAN 10? So basically, it's saying this is VLAN 10, which is using the network 64, and so the question is, which IP addresses fall in the range of 64 through 127 for the last octet? This one does. Let me change my colors. This one does here, and they all have the same mask. And this one does. And this one right here, 129, that's in the next subnet. And 193 is in like subnet D, so that doesn't. So that's the approach. And so I don't know if I mentioned or not, if you're in an exam environment and you find yourself, pressed for time, it is okay to take an extra minute or two on questions like this, because this is a couple layers deep, like showing you an IP address on an interface and then asking what is the other appropriate addresses. That's really helping to gauge your knowledge of how IP addressing works, which is a pretty important skill. All right, let me clear that off. Thanks for your patience with that. And I have an older recording of this quiz from, I don't know, many, many, many months ago. And I'm going to just repost that. Because oh my gosh, I'm still waking up is the reality. Not my normal peppy self. Yesterday was my youngest child's graduation party, and so it was great. We had some swimming and some food, and then last night, where I am in the world, shows are opening up, so we actually went to go see something, and it was amazing. It's amazing to actually, there's still some precautions in place, but it was amazing to go out. Anyway, let's take a look at the platform and see who crushed this. And everybody who's here, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's take a look at the winners table. Captain Panda! I love this game. And I like, being here with you. It's fun to spend some time. It is. Let me go ahead and get some feedback as well. And let me get my face out of there. All right, these are our toughest questions out of what we had 12 or 13 questions. These are the toughest ones, but not bad. And let me go ahead and get your feedback as well. So if you have the app open or a browser open to this page where you can actually, with the game interface, please give me your feedback. That'd be valuable for me. And let me put this camera on. And it's been great having you. If you need to bolt, I understand. If you study, schedule study time. It's important to have not just quality study time, but quantity of study time too. And one way of doing that for me is I focus on what I want to do the next day. And I'll just have that in my mind, have it on note. And that way when I go to study, I can just start studying it. And I don't have to worry about what am I going to study today? And then get sucked into social media or whatever it is that might take our time. Okay, let me go ahead and bring over the question window. And you confirm I'm in the right camera. Boom. Yep. And if you do me a favor, if you want to ask a live question now, question on the queue, please feel free to put your comments in and ask a question. Do me a huge favor, though, do an @KeithBarker, and that way for me, it shows up as a big orange bold so I can see it very easily, and that way I can take your question. So we'll spend 5 or 10 minutes if you want, just taking questions, and my ideal scenario would be they'd be focused on CCNA that's my major intent here on YouTube as well. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions that are coming in. Vicky saying, great quiz. It was great to chat with you on Discord yesterday, Vicky. Thank you for all your help for the community and a lot of kind comments. Thank you. Happy. Oh, Iggy saying, awesome, Keith. Glad I found your channel. Well, Iggy, I'm glad you found the channel too. My full-time gig is over at CBT Nuggets, which is a paid subscription site where we do training on all kinds of things. But for YouTube here, this channel, it's all these days, it's all about focusing on the CCNA. So 140 plus videos. It doesn't cover every possible topic. It's not like you'd use this for your only study source, but it's helpful on most of those topics. And the quiz questions are great. There's a playlist just for that. Okay. And let me bring this up a little higher so I can read it a little easier. And setting it up. Yeah. My baby graduated high school. Yeah, I've got a few kids, 7 kids, and she's the last one to graduate from high school. So 5 college graduates and maybe more. We'll see. Okay. All right. TZ's asking, do all switches support SVIs? So here's the deal with a switched virtual interface. This is important. I remember when I was first learning, my first instructor, like back in the 90s, was Johnny Bass. He's still around. And I see him, when Cisco Live was live, I used to go and make sure I reached out to him and said hi to him every year. But anyway, I learned about switched virtual interfaces back then. And a switched virtual interface has 2 purposes. One is for remote management of that Cisco switch. So unless you want to be on the console or going through the terminal server to the console port, if we want to manage over an IP network a managed switch, it needs to have an SVI. That's how we reach it based on its IP address. Now, if it's a layer 2 switch, it's going to support an SVI just for the benefit of remote management. That's why we'd also want to specify a default gateway so it can respond back to us. Otherwise, we could try to reach out, and if it didn't have a default gateway, couldn't reach us. So that's a layer 2 managed switch, which most of Cisco switches are managed. Now, if we kick it up a notch, we go to a multi-layer switch, and we enable IP routing, then the SVIs take on a double role. Not only are they used for management of that switch, but also they can do routing between VLAN 10 and VLAN 20 because they have 2 logical interfaces with the appropriate IP addresses in each subnet. So in answer to your question, yes, most switches support SVIs, but only the ones capable of doing routing can route other people's traffic. Thanks for the question. Okay, let's see what else. N19ENS is saying, I would like to go to the beginning of Subnet Saturdays. How long is the series so I can catch up? I did it over 11 weeks. Each Saturday, it took like an hour, maybe hour and a half, but they're all listed. So if you go to the playlist for Subnet Saturday, all the times are listed. So I would start at the beginning and work your way down. Maybe schedule, maybe do it like I created it. Schedule it once a week. Just schedule an hour once a week and go through those, do the exercises. And when you come out of that process, if you put in the time, which isn't a lot of time, but if you go through the videos, you'll be able to answer all those questions regarding subnetting. But even more important than answering a question, you'll have the knowledge of how it works. And so when you see an IP address, it'll no longer be a mystery. Sid is asking, are there any specific advantages of having wildcard masks? So a wildcard mask, so in an IP subnetting, the mask itself is used to be the dividing line between network bits and host bits. Great. But when we use a network statement in things like routing protocols, well, no, that's a bad idea. If we use a wildcard mask, a wildcard bits, when we use an access control list, the wildcard bits simply say what we don't care about matching on. So using an access control list, we can be very creative. They don't have to be contiguous in an access list. So if you're at the CCNP or IE level and you need to block on every odd network, meaning odd numbered network, you could do that with a creative access control list, with a creative wildcard mask that could say, hey, this has to be a 0, which would make it even. And then, so you don't have to be contiguous with the bits. All right, that's an advantage of wildcard masks. I wish wildcard masks were never invented, frankly, but there is a need for them, and they take a little bit getting used to. But they could have done it other ways, but that's okay. Aviv is saying, thanks for the quiz. You're so welcome. Glad you're here. Glad to have you. And how often do we do quizzes like this? Zachary's asking. Every single Sunday. Every Sunday Pacific time, which is where I'm at. I'm in Nevada. In the U.S. So every Sunday, 11 a.m. If you miss them, no problem. I have either the quiz we did live or a replica or similar quiz in my quiz playlist, which are also good. So you can just go through them, pause, look at the question, and then answer it when you're ready. So I would suggest maybe not looking at the quizzes or, in the playlist until you've studied that topic. So if you studied HSRP and then the quizzes on HSRP, you can then have a good estimate about answering those questions and interpreting why the correct answer is correct. All right. Aviv is saying, while studying for the exam, I didn't understand on what to focus on the part of QoS and cloud virtualization in order to succeed. Great. So Aviv, for QoS, I have a very concise video regarding QoS for the CCNA that's in the CCNA playlist. And so I took all the topics that were in that section of the blueprint for QoS, things like weighted random early detection, priority queuing, low latency queuing. In fact, some of those may not be literally in the blueprint, but it talks about per hop behavior. It's all in that one video. So that's like an hour. So if you want to brush up on what do I need to know and how does QoS work and what the heck is RED, W-R-E-D, and why do I need it and how does it work? That's your video. And then for cloud virtualization, I think the blueprint just asks, explain or describe the benefits and concepts regarding virtualization, which is, I've got a couple videos on that as well. But in short, virtualization is the ability to virtualize stuff. We could virtualize networking. We could virtualize computers with VMs. We could virtualize a whole data center. So we have some hardware in the background, and then software-defined networking, software-defined data centers is the benefit of doing all that, is that once it's in place, the change and management of that is just with clicks. So if we need new connections, instead of walking over to a rack and physically moving the cables, if it's in software, we can logically do that in software. But anyway, there's lots of videos on that on my channel as well. All right, Charles is saying, found your channel via the Art of Engineering. Great. Art of Engineering is a fantastic podcast, by the way. So Charles, nice to meet you. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Vicky. Appreciate that. And let me see what else. Ascalit is saying, I didn't study subnetting for a month and I forgot subnetting thanks to, you got happy to do the refresh. I learned subnetting back in 1980, probably 86, 87, in Fullerton, California. I went to a class with Hewlett-Packard back in the day, and they taught, it was all about IPv4 and subnetting. And I learned it, and I remember being rough, like, So what I did was I created this playlist as the playlist I wish somebody had made for me when I was first learning it. It's like a gift to my past self and to all the future selves, you and everybody else who might be wanting to learn it. So enjoy that, and I think it's going to be fantastic for you. Okay. Any suggestions for more labs, and how would someone know if they're ready for the CCNA? Armin, that's a great question. For the CCNA, I would say that if I do this for all my new courses I might be studying, whether they're like Cisco Firepower or Palo Alto's Firepower Appliance or Checkpoint or VMware, whatever it is. I take the blueprint, which is the list of the exam objectives from the vendor, right? Just go right to the horse's mouth and get that detail. And then I would just go through and take a moment and rank myself on knowledge 5 being, man, I could write this protocol. I could configure it, change it, troubleshoot it. I'm like the shizzle for everything on this topic. And that would be a 5, which is rare for most people. And then a number 1 would be, I have no idea what this is. It's the first time I've heard about gateway load balancing protocol, or it's the first time I've heard about multicast routing, or it's the first, whatever. Rank yourself. And then as you go to study, say, hey, I'd like to take this from a level 1 to a level 2. Make that the target for a study session, an hour, hour and a half, which involves reading, maybe some videos, some hands-on, just to move the needle a little bit for that one topic, and then measure it and say, wow, okay, I now know what, like for CCNA, I now know how spanning tree works, what its purpose is. I know there's a couple different modes, and just keep increasing your knowledge. And then are you ready? My quiz playlist is terrific for that purpose. Terrific. So some of the quizzes are edited, which makes it a lot easier to get through. Some are not, but I think most of you have a scrub option where you can move the place where you are in the video. And what I would do is just go through those topics. Let's say you just finished studying layer 2 switching. So find a quiz on my playlist for layer 2 switching. And then when you find it, hit play or scrub to where the first question is, and then pause it and then say, okay, what's the answer to this question? And not just for the, like I watched this 2 minutes ago, now I'm answering it, but rather pause it before I reveal the answer, and then ask yourself, what is the answer? Why is that the answer? And if you find yourself with 4 or 5 questions where you're like, I had no clue how to do that, go back to your blueprint and mark that you need to study a little bit more. Because the memorization isn't the key as far as like the answers to these quiz questions, because these are not the questions you're going to get literally in the exam. These are questions that I wrote. But Cisco is fairly testing you, fairly, F-A-I-R. They are doing a fair job of testing your knowledge on the blueprint items. They want to know, do you understand this? And if you don't, they don't want you to be a CCNA. They only have to be like 80% of the questions correct. But that's how I would do it, and that's how I know if I was ready, is by using my exams, my practice exams, and seeing how you do on this. All right, Bryce is saying I've been recommending. Oh, thank you, Bryce. Oh, he's been recommending Bryce has been recommending my content to troops in the unit you're in. Oh, thank you very much. And for everybody who's in the service of their country, and we have a lot of different countries involved, and I realize that. Awesome. Putting someone's life on the line and being willing to serve and protect, the government and fellow citizens and so forth. It's amazing. My dad is a veteran from the Korean War. He was in the Marines. And he still has pictures, photos. He had a little Super 8 camera that he kept with him. Amazing. So I'm going to stop there so I don't get too emotional. But it's, anyway, thank you for everybody who's in the service of your fellow man in whatever capacity, including the military, in whatever country you may be in. All right. Somebody's asking, can I self-tutor for CCNA? It depends. So I would have some curriculum or some kind of support. But if you can lab it up, and I usually self-study myself for most of my topics, but I use Google, I use the online doc, and I lab it up. And so that's my secret is so as far as self-study, do you have to go to a formal class? I'd say no, but you do need to lab most stuff up to practice it. Okay, let's see here. Let's see, where am I at? I think I thought I had it highlighted. I moved my mouse, my bad. Let me just see real quick. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Anwar, and thank you for the kind comments from everybody. Washa's saying, wildcards are interesting. Washa said wildcards are confusing, but if you practice with them, they become less confusing. That's the thing. It's like a microwave oven. How does it work? Or a laser printer. How does it work? By default, we aren't going to know until we dive in. And once we dive in, we'll say, oh, this laser printer, here's the logic behind how it works with the fuser roller and the voltages and the fuser assembly and all the rest, and then has a laser. Anyway, once you dive into it, it becomes less and less confusing. So I remember, I won't tell you the topic, but I remember one of my topics, which used to be my hardest topic in the world, like maybe 15 years ago. I was like, I can't get this. It's now one of my favorites. It's now one of my favorite technologies. And so those things which are weaknesses initially, if you dive in and study and lab it up, they can become strengths. That's true with most things in life. All right. Thank you, Samuel, saying I've self-tutored myself for CCNP route switch and passed my exams. Thank you for that feedback. Techie saying FHRP quiz would be nice. At least subnetting the topic gets fixed. Okay, great. Let's see here. RG35 saying, what's the best manner to succeed in the exam is to practice, lab it up. If in the blueprint it says configure, that's a secret. It's saying you really need to know how to configure this and make it work, including all the outputs from the show commands. If it says describe in the blueprint, like describe virtualization, they're not going to ask you to configure a hypervisor, but they might ask you what a hypervisor is. So just so the best way to prepare is everywhere it says configure, lab it up. And Packet Tracer is free, absolutely free. Doesn't cost a dime. You can go to Netacad. I've got videos on it. David Bombal has videos on it. Chuck Keith has, Network Chuck has videos on it. Packet Tracer Labs has videos on it. So get Packet Tracer for free and then start labbing it up. Okay, let's see here. Let's see if there's anything else. And ACHRAF is asking, any plans to start doing CCNP study lists? No. So, yeah, for CCNA, my goal with this channel is to help everybody who wants to get their initial CCNA to have some additional resources and time to help prep. So Saturdays, office hours are focused on CCNA. It's open to everybody. It's free. This channel, which has 140 videos in the playlist, is all free for CCNA. I do have some CCIE level stuff out on my YouTube channel from like years ago, but most of it these days is just CCNA. If you want some good CCNP study material, come check out CBT Nuggets. It's not free, it's a subscription, but in my humble opinion, if you're serious about studying for that stuff, it's a great resource, so it's well worth it. Okay, let's see here. Great answers to other questions, fantastic. Okay, and let me see if there's anything else. I had to block a few people during the quiz, sorry about that. They just would not stop in answering quiz questions in the chats. And so instead of just putting them on timeout for 300 seconds, which I often do, I had to hide a few of them because they just wouldn't stop. I'm like, well, I don't want everybody else to get distracted by the comments. So if I blocked you, it was only because I was in the interest of the group and asking you not to post answers in the actual chat. So if that happened, my apologies. Thank you for the super sticker. Let me see what else is here. Scrolling down the list. All right, Zachary got his Network Plus. Fantastic. Little refresh on subnetting here. Fantastic. Good. And N19ENS, thank you for the super sticker. That's fantastic. Very much appreciated. And one last question I see here is, do the questions from the Cisco Wendell Odom books, which is the official Cisco Press books, oh, she's giving a recommendation. Fantastic. Thank you, Vicky. Answering a question on recommendations on what to do to prepare. All right. What do I think about crypto? Says don't care. I think cryptography is great. If you're asking about cryptocurrency, that's something I'm not going to talk about here on this channel. All right. It's great to have everybody here. Let me send you out some music. I'm going to be hanging out in the Discord room, in the CCNA voice room, if you want to hang out there for a few minutes. If you have follow-up questions regarding some of the subnetting we did, you can reach me there. I'll be there in a few minutes. Also, I will be putting back the recorded version of a similar quiz like this in the playlist. So there will be a subnetting specific quiz that you can go down in the playlist if you want to see it later. All right. Okay. Let me go ahead and send you out with some music. I'll see you in Discord if you're there. If not, next Saturday, 10 a.m. Pacific time on Discord, free office hours with me. Bring your CCNA questions. And then next Sunday, 11 a.m. is the quiz. And I'll announce the topic before the next quiz so you can prepare for that as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.